What's the day? August 8th. Today is the vlog for August 8th. And if you couldn't tell already, my eyes are driving me crazy because I found out that it's not paint per se, but the folks who are redoing the downstairs are applying texture to the walls, texture to the flat walls that will give them a texture. In my experience, what it really seems to do is it makes the wall seem more solid. Seems to make it feel thicker, because I sort of equate it with, finished construction, whereas like a mixture of texture and flatness is still a work in progress. So it's kind of startling to see all this stuff get built piecemeal and realize just how thin modern walls tend to be, and why it's so easy to accidentally put a hole in them with just a little bit of force and the right tool or the right shape of object. But as long as you're careful, you'll go through much of your life without seriously damaging any walls. But whatever this stuff is, it is quite unpleasant to be around. It makes my eyes water and sting. And thankfully, they're only doing it downstairs so I can escape it by going upstairs. But I feel like it is only going to get less pleasant the hotter it gets, and we haven't even gotten to the hottest day of the week yet. Today actually wasn't that bad. It was definitely warmer. Temperature's definitely going up, but it only peaked around the mid 80s. These kind of days are fine. I can deal with a lot of these kind of days. It's when it's getting warmer, which it will be getting, that it starts to become a problem. But yeah, not much to talk about today. I got a lot of the adventure sort of squared away. I sort of finished the outline for each of the parts of the adventure. I need to grab some statistics from a few things, but it's coming along. I'm probably going to end up having to wing a lot of it, which is the nature of any Dungeons and Dragons adventure. It's how much stuff you can make up on the fly, how much you can engage players with hastily added events and creatures and NPCs. And I'm hoping that my group is forgiving of me for having been out of this for quite some time. I've actually only hosted a very few handful of adventures, and thankfully these guys are really good. I don't think they're going to be as taxing as my friends were when I was in junior high and high school, and I was way more into Dungeons and Dragons. And it occurred to me just the other day how odd it was for 3rd edition D&D to come into my life when it did, because it came out about... I'm going to find out on camera. I'm sorry, because I'm going to take a little trip down memory lane. I should say I'm on an AC/DC kick right now, because I just found out that for the longest time their music was not available on iTunes, but it is now. And I have already bought about 5 songs, I want to say. Yeah, at least 5 songs. Just the ones that I really like to listen to, like Back in Black, Shoot to Thrill. The Back in Black album had some really good songs. Shook Me All Night Long, I really like that one. And then a couple other just standout classics like Highway to Hell. What was the other one I picked up? Not Thunderstruck. I keep thinking about picking up Thunderstruck. Shoot the Thrill, Back in Black. I've got it right here. I should just look at this. Ah, Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, of course. One of their, I guess it's an earlier song. I never really acquitted it as one of their earlier pieces. Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. Um, Definitely, you can see how it would get the sort of heavy metal label. Um, the editions of Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, Dungeons and Dragons second edition advanced rules came out, I want to say, like in the middle of the 80s. It might have been earlier than that. Yeah, okay. 81 was D&D Basic Set okay. So 89 was AD&D second edition. That was the earliest version of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Well, probably the only one that was ever called Advanced. Oh no, AD&D came out in 1977. So the second edition of AD&D came out in 89, right before I moved here. So it was sort of in play by the time I got into it in like 92 or 93. And although it was only a span of like 7 years between 93 and 2000 when third edition came out, you know, in high school that was it, and so it seemed like it was around forever. And D&D had been around since 1973, so we just sort of accepted that those rules were kind of old, even though they were really only, you know, by the time I was in junior high, they were only 4 or 5 years old. And then third edition comes out right when I get into college. Like I started college in 1999, and third edition came out the following year. And then in 2002, that's when I started working at WizKids, the game store. So, yeah. And then third edition, 3.5 came out while I was working at that store. And that was kind of a big deal, but it also didn't make quite as big of a splash as the third edition had, because third edition had come along after 11 years of second edition and a lot of different iterations of different types of rules in second edition. So it went third edition, and then 3 years later 3.5, and 5 years after that fourth edition, and then 6 years after that fifth edition, and now it has been 4 years since that. So we are probably going to get a new edition within the next couple of years, even though I've just now gotten into fifth edition, and I'm hoping that it's not too different. But there are definitely aspects of fifth edition that could use a little bit of cleaning up. A few things that are phrased in a sort of clunky way, like you can use this ability and then you can use it again after you've taken a short or long rest. Why don't you come up with a simpler term like advantage? You know, just say, and if you have, you know, in this situation, you will roll your d20 twice, but only use the higher value, or use the value you want. Now, they came up with a name for that, which was advantage. So come up with an easy to remember name for things that you can use every time you've taken a short rest, or things that you can use every time you've taken a long rest. They used to call everything you can use after you've taken a long rest once per day. The problem is, you know, on campaign worlds where days aren't 24 hours, or parties don't sleep and rest, and so they just magically somehow regenerate spells at midnight, they wanted to move away from that. So they came up with the idea of getting back certain abilities and spells after taking a long rest, but then they used that whole term whenever they mentioned it anywhere in the rules. So that and a few other things could definitely be streamlined. They don't need to take an axe to it the way they did with 4th edition, which really changed the game up and made it feel like a different game. But some refinement is possible. And I look forward to it. Hopefully I'm not going to be in the middle of a campaign while it's happening. We'll see. Anyway, I'm Eric Spornitz, and tomorrow will be better.